That's something you can request, by the way. I like to request multiple kisses if I feel like maybe they could be more juicy. Hey, that's something to know. Más besos. Is that? I don't really speak Spanish. My name is Lana. I'm in the kitchen with Joe.
Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast or video. I know some people are coming to this through the book and other people through other various outlets, but we're both really excited to share some of the more intimate stories of how we first came together. Almost, I think of it like two big energies colliding together and like fireworks or something. So we had a really incredible start to our relationship, and I think there's a few things in there that people could maybe learn from to enhance and improve their relationship with themselves and their partner. Some interesting approaches that we both took to being really vulnerable and really open really quick, and we learned a lot. And I think we both started the relationship with the idea that the other one was a genius and that we both wanted to know everything about this person and what they knew and all their work. And we had both had our own particular areas of study before we came together. And so there was a very deep background that Lana brought with all her experience, which I'll let you talk about. But I like to brag, so yeah.
Do it, brag, I like
it. So Lana's amazing. Lana was doing, health and nutrition at a really young age because of her mother. But then, as she got older, it took on a life of its own with her own research and just starting with animal cruelty and factory farming and just bringing awareness to, I think, her 8th grade or freshman year friends, when most kids, that's just not on the radar. And then from there, Lana went on and worked at a grocery store, a cooperative.
Willy Street Grocery Cooperative.
Madison, Wisconsin. It doesn't get much more hippie than that. And then the co-op is like this cornerstone of the culture there. If anybody's familiar with Madison, it is the co-op. Willy Street is the shit. It's like a really, it's a special place. And I know it because when we first met, Lana had brought me there. But she had worked there for, 4 years or something?
I think it was 4 years. It was on and off because that's just part of me. I have to go travel and, take care of the gypsy part of myself. So I left the co-op, I think twice, and they were gracious enough to let me come back because I had more learning to do.
Right. And that was what it was all about there, right? So she was doing tons of in-depth training on all the different farms and brands and products and ingredients, right?
Yeah, part of working at Willy Street Co-op in Madison is the trainings. So if they have it set up the same way now, that was almost a decade ago now, they had the employees take these trainings for an hour or 2 hours while they were working, and they were paid, and we would learn about wheat, like every possible thing you could learn about wheat, how it grows and how it's how it's cultivated, and the very, very smallest pieces of information about all kinds of food that we had in the bulk section or in any part of the store. And there were wellness trainings for the herbs and vitamins that we had, and I already had a good foundation, so this was just building on it, and it was strong because I got to use all of the information immediately with all of the customers because I worked in the deli. I moved around the store a little bit, but I mostly worked in the deli, so I'd be serving food, and we'd have all of the people come who are very strict about their diet and very specific, particular. They would come and ask for something, and they would say, is there wheat in that? Is there gluten? Is there sugar? Is there salt? Where did that come from? Was this imported? They would ask all these questions. So it got me asking questions, and it got me excited about food. Well, before that I was excited about food, but my father actually said, if you really want to be vegan and live this lifestyle, then you should go work at the co-op or do something with your work. My first stop was actually at Burger King. Alright, I just admitted that.
The secret's out. Burger King. My brother worked at Burger King for like a week.
I think it was 15.
Yeah.
A week. Yeah, that's about how long I lasted there, actually. I had a lot of ice cream and then I left.
But those things help you, that experience there. I think all those things kind of help you.
Learning.
Yeah. What a contrast, Burger King, co-op.
Yeah, and it wasn't that far apart, actually.
Yeah. And so when I met Lana, she had all this knowledge from years of working in the co-op and just living it really anyway. And so at that very moment, I had really been seeking like new information. I had just like kind of woke up to the idea that our food was poisoned. I'd read a couple articles about, just factory farming and just, organic and just all the differences there. And so I was really starting to question everything that was in my refrigerator. I had a previous partner who took care of all the shopping before, and so I was kind of on autopilot, eating the meals that my workplace provided. I worked in a casino, so it was just shit. And then at home, she was just doing the American standard, frozen meals and whatever, just basic, the normal stuff that you would get without any training beyond the food pyramid. And so since her and I had split up, I had to start going to the store, and some part of me just intuitively knew, like, there's just too many ingredients in this. What the fuck is this? Where did this come from? And I started to just see supermarkets as like these big crazy places where there's only like everything came from a factory or through some kind of a process. And it just didn't seem natural. And so I was seeking this woman to come and help me because she cooked for people with like strict diets, like, picky vegans and shit.
And how did you find her, Karen? I can't remember.
Through my mom,
Right.
And then so this woman cooked for people, and I was looking for somebody, like, I was like, oh, let me hire her, and she was busy and overbooked and wouldn't come. And then Lana and I met. And it was like, oh wow, you know about all this and so much more. So when we first met, it was like, I think we had both kind of been looking for each other. And so that is where I really hooked in and was like, teach me everything you know about food. Help me, get rid of everything in my kitchen that's not good. Whatever shouldn't be here, get it out. And then we got a bunch of paper bags, and she just started filling them. And most of it, she was like, we just gotta throw this shit away. Like, this is not good for anybody. And then some stuff, I'm like, I'm still like kind of having a hard time with some of it, so I'm like, oh, we'll donate it, and we like gave some to people, and she didn't even want to give away. But it was everything. It was spices, condiments, everything. There was really nothing left. And then we went to Whole Foods, which was an hour away, and we replaced everything. And I think we spent like $800 maybe the first time.
Right, and it really wasn't even that much. It was like just replenishing the basics, just spices and condiments and little things, and then of course threw in like a Himalayan salt rock and some stuff like that.
Yeah.
Organic toothbrush.
So, our relationship really, the glue of it, I think, was food and our desire for getting closer to the source, which is now, over many years, all the iterations of how we have eaten has evolved since then, since we both just perpetuated our obsession with sourcing the best possible things to put in and on your body.
Right.
So whatever goes in or on your body, we both talk about, think about, and do our best to have our days where we can indulge and enjoy, but
within our comfort zone.
Right.
I don't think indulging and enjoying at this point, it wouldn't ever be going to a fast food restaurant, for example, or there's just things that we would never do anymore just because we know the effects. And once you start paying so much attention to your body and you have enough awareness, then when you go for those things and you take them in, even the smallest amount, you can really feel them and you feel the effect. And that's how the giving up sugar really came in, just the awareness grew. And we noticed how it was affecting ourselves first and foremost, but then also your relationship, our relationship. So this idea of, you eat sugar, smoke a cigarette, have a beer, have wine, whatever, have something that alters your state, and then you come to connect with your partner and there's like a wall in front of them, and it is that thing that you took in. It's that thing that made you feel like shit, the sugar or the cigarette or too much alcohol or a whole myriad of things that we use, a whole plethora that just kind of blocks off connecting with your partner. When you feel like crap, it's really hard to connect. And we figured that out as we spent more time in the kitchen and got more interested in optimizing. I think that was a huge thing. We were both really interested in optimizing and growing in that way, where we just got better and better in terms of what we were putting in and on our bodies, including non-food sources, education, and going to a yoga teacher training and then afterwards saying, I don't want to listen to the radio anymore. Do you want to listen to the radio anymore?
Yeah.
We were like,
we did a yoga training at Kripalu. It's a yoga center on the East Coast in the Berkshire Mountains in Massachusetts. And so we were there for a whole month doing yoga, like every morning from, whatever that was, 6 a.m. till 10 at night or something every day. And so it's a lot of oming and a lot of, they did have dance parties with like some beat and drums and bass and music like that, but not so much, more on the yogic, meditative, more like ambient sounds and stuff. And so when we were driving home, it was like, the radio was just like, it was
so
like
intense.
such a contrast to everything. And so we're always optimizing, and I think that we had let each other kind of create these like priorities, like, okay, well, I don't want that, and like, I know sometimes you like to listen to music, but you won't, that I don't want it, and like, you'll do it, and I do too. We both can like jam out to rap, and it's fun, and we do, but then
we gotta balance each other. We love each other. Like, all right, that was enough. One or two songs. Like, I can see that the vibration is affecting you.
So we'd rather put on like a podcast or something funny, or something educational. Or Lana loves to practice a language. So I think we both are just open to the idea of optimizing our time together to be improving ourselves and just doing something healthy that's in harmony with the planet. That's also a very big part of how we really agree that, like, can we just be a team that like produces less,
less taking from the environment and more of a, I guess, synergistic relationship where what we're doing isn't harming and we're taking and giving at the same time.
Right. And it does have its drawbacks. It's not always perfect because we start to obsess sometimes about things, and then it's like, if you focused your whole life on tragedies, you could die just noticing all the bad things that are happening. So we've had to grow together in this obsessive desire to like be more efficient and in harmony with each other and the planet. But there is a balance to that where I know that sometimes it can cause tension and stress, which is actually more harmful than maybe
eating a cookie with sugar.
Maybe having a sugar. So.
But this is an important part as well. This whole balance, and you say obsessive. We use this word like playfully, of course. This idea of being obsessive, but I feel like this is one huge part of our relationship. When I met you, you were super positive, and my whole background was just, there was a lot of negativity and cynical nature in my family and friendships. I guess I just gravitated toward that because it was familiar. So when I met you, you were Mr. Optimistic, positive, bright side, great outlook on life. And that was another foundational part of our relationship, just pointing that out. You know, what is the bright side to this, and how can we be more positive and look at the better outcome, and, you know, actually shifting things too, because you decide how things are going to turn out once you start using your awareness and saying, I want that positive outcome, and knowing that that's what you're focused on instead of just letting life happen.
Right.
And you got me into a lot of the personal development stuff. I was already on the track with the yoga and, you know, just the idea of the whole metaphysical world. Yeah.
And
how important it is. But you put in the mindset aspect of it that I hadn't fully acclimated to when we met. And then you could still come in through my angle because I met you and said, hey, if we're going to be together, I want you to start studying Tantra. You have to study Tantra. We have to have this tantric lovemaking in our relationship.
And that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, you actually looked it up, which is like, how could you not want to be with somebody who you tell them your interests and the next day they're getting books?
Right. And that's easy. See, that was 8 years ago almost, in about a month, right? Next month is 8 years.
Wow.
So it's easy to do that in the beginning sometimes, which I went all in and really, you know, I did read the books and put the time in. But continuing to do that, you know, as of, say, a year and a half ago, when you've expressed interest in different, say, plant medicine or things that we're doing now, and still doing that. And I think that that's what we do for each other, that we still do that with each other, that we explore each other's interests and talents, and kind of somehow we always end up in the same thing because we're just so connected, I think.
There's kind of a magnet in the middle where we just keep gravitating towards the center instead of being drawn away. It's like
Right. Yeah.
magnets that stick together.
So our paths have like blended together, and we still have a lot of stuff that we do individually, but they're just very blended. Everything has seemed to really blend really well. And I guess the point I was making before with regard to getting being open to your partner and what they're bringing forward, and trusting, you know, certain things that, you know, maybe you weren't necessarily headed in a certain direction in different cases with us, that you expressed interest, and that we just kind of go with it, like me wanting to move to California and you saying, okay, let's go, and just trusting that 100% without really knowing what or how any of that would work out.
Trust, it's huge.
Right.
Even if you think something's a little bit off, which there's something to that as well, like telling your partner, hey, I think that your idea, maybe we should work through this or talk through this before you jump on board.
Right.
But first and foremost, trust.
Right.
Like you're really, your conviction is really high about this decision that you're making. Okay, I will try it out. I'll jump on board with you. Being open and trusting.
Right.
I think that's what happened with the food, totally.
Right.
And going in the kitchen, and the Tantra.
Right.
And then the yoga teacher training, because I said, hey, I'm going to go do this yoga teacher training. And you said, I think I want to come with you. And you just came, you know, without much experience, and you just were totally open to it, and then loved it. And then right after, we do a Tantra training, and then stay consistent with our teachers even till today,
Right.
assisting their workshops, and got really into it and really took on that idea of how can we be more conscious and connecting with each other, and use sexual energy as something to progress.
Yes.
Huge.
Right.
It's not something that I believe either one of us had when we started the relationship, was this awareness of how to use sexual energy. or yes, cultivate it, yeah, but
in a more conscious, intentional way. The fact that we intentionally can just breathe together with or without lovemaking, that we are in harmony with each other, like to take that moment to just put each hand on each other's heart and just take a breath and a moment to just be there. And those are good practices. And I think what you're talking about is that when we started, we both knew, and I kind of picked up on this from like Tony Robbins and some other personal development work about being around the people you want to be like. So we literally cut pictures of successful couples that we thought were successful people and couples. We had people that we wanted to model, and we also had very specific couples. Some were just friends that were a little further down the road, because we both found that being in a relationship, if you really want to be in a relationship for a while, then you got to model people who are doing it that in a way that you both feel is successful. And I think we really made a conscious effort sometimes to travel an hour or 2 hours just to go hang out with a couple that we knew was really doing, things that living the way we wanted to live, just to get around that energy. So I really encourage people to do that. If your relationship is going through any kind of struggles, or there's some kind of conflict, having models is really important. Elders, not just your mom and your dad and your immediate family, but go seek out those elders who are a little further down the road than you, and model what it is you want.
And then there's and then the analogy of things like plants, if you want to go on to that level, like a seed, nurturing a seed, your relationship being that seed, and all the things that need to be there for that seed to grow and be nourished. The seed doesn't just at one point turn into this big beautiful plant or flower, and then you can pluck it out of its place and it still stays what it is. These roots are still in the ground. They're continually taking in nourishment, just like a relationship. A relationship continually needs nourishment. Like moving back in with you after I was gone for a while, and you said, I read something about how we really need to make this house our own and together, and both contribute to it, so you feel like it's your house too. So we're gonna paint the kitchen together.
Right.
And I almost didn't want to at first, just the whole taking on the big task of painting the kitchen, but it was a really connecting thing. Just even choosing the color, something so simple.
Right.
It was connecting.
Right. So to clarify what you're talking about, because it may not be clear, that we had a time apart. We had met each other. We were together for several months, and then Lana went to India for several months, and we were apart for I think 8 months maybe.
Almost a year.
And then we decided to come back together and really, go forward with our relationship. So when we say 8 years of a relationship, we're talking from that first time we met. But we did have this little 8-month break in the beginning. And when she came back to the house, that was a very the first beginning when we met was just this fun thing. But this was us really deciding, okay, we're going to do this relationship. We're really going to do this, intentional about being together, and we really decided to come together at that moment. And I was trying to think of ways, because it was my house, I bought it, I had lived there a little bit longer than her. I had memories in there with my son's mom, and really just wanted her to feel like it was her house, it was her kitchen, that she could feel at home there and not be a guest in my house. So I'm like, okay, we got to paint the kitchen, and we cleared everything out, and I'm like, and you go to Home Depot and pick out the color. And she's like, I don't want to do that. You gotta come, let's pick it out together. And I think we kind of did a little bit, but it was like essentially you made the color, and then you, Joey, and I, all three of us actually painted the kitchen together. And that's just that was a cool little thing.
A little thing that was huge, because we spent so much time in the kitchen, and we looked at those walls all the time.
Right.
And then people would come to visit and mention it, and it was actually huge.
Right. And the color was pretty, people would notice it.
It was really intense. But yeah, that was one of the markers of when we actually decided to be together.
Right.
Because when we first met, I was, going to India to be a yogi, and I didn't want to be committed to anyone, and I had been with someone for 7 years, and it was terrible, and I just didn't want to be in a relationship, and no attachment and all of that, and Joe's Mr. Loyal, and, he was ready to be, a partner. I think in the beginning you were ready to be in a committed relationship.
Sure.
And I don't think I was.
Right.
I wasn't. I don't think. I know I wasn't.
Right.
So it was kind of messy in the beginning in that sense, the idea of being committed. We weren't sure about that. I wasn't sure about that. But then when I came back, how much time had passed?
So it was about a year,
Right, a year from when we first met, and then we really decided.
Right.
I was in Wisconsin working and just trying to put my life back together after I had traveled and then we had separated, and then you show up on my doorstep and you were came all the way from New Jersey, didn't have your car, and said, "Oh, you have a car, we're gonna drive back." That's commitment.
Well, you did say you were gonna move. You always tell this story, but you never say that, like, we were on the phone like the day before, and I'm like, "Oh, you bought a car, cool. So you're gonna drive to New Jersey?" "Yeah, I'm gonna drive like tomorrow or the next day or whatever it was, next week." I don't remember.
I'm voicing what was really in my head because I was like, I don't know.
Right.
Really
You were
good.
doubting, but you did say like, yeah, I'll come. But I knew, and I was
She
like,
made
okay.
it real. I'm coming to get you.
Oh, good, you'll come? Okay, I flew in, one-way ticket, and we drove back together.
And then that was what, 2010 at this point, because we had done, or 2009, the very
Right.
end of 2009.
Yeah.
And then we did the yoga training, and then 2011, a year later, is when we actually decided to move to California. But before we did that, we did so much work with Tony Robbins, and we did Date with Destiny, which is all about relationships, and so much of Tony's work is. So that was another huge thing that we did and put a lot of time and effort into, just studying his material, learning it, understanding what he has to say about relationships, and really utilizing that. One thing that really stuck out for me was the idea of, if you think it's not working, because I'm just somebody who doubts myself and doubts things a lot, which is something I've kind of moved away from at this point. It's more of a thing of the past, but at that point there was so much doubt all the time that I would go back and forth from. And after we went to the week-long Date with Destiny, he said, if you're doubting your relationship, then just give it, I think it was 60 days or maybe even shorter, and just give them everything and have no focus on yourself, and just give them 110%. And that has always stuck with me, because if I'm ever doubting our relationship or feeling like things are not good, I have to ask myself, am I giving 110%? And if I'm not, then I have to look at myself before I, question what's between us.
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of really powerful stuff in that whole weekend, and that was a big part of it. To go home and I thought that was cool. He said, don't go. People get fired up at big events or do these really significant workshops or seminars, and then they go home and leave their partner. And his idea was, assess it. If you're in an abusive situation, maybe you need to leave, but maybe you need to go home and just give and get the focus off of yourself and put it out that way. And if two people go home and do that, things are just more than likely just going to flow and be okay. And so luckily we went together. A lot of people will go to these without their spouse or partner and go home, and it's a little more of a challenge. But when two people go home and have that, so we would always do a lot of the work together. Whether it was a meditation workshop, yoga, any kind of personal development, we try to do it together. Even Thai massage, because it's good for the relationship to have your hands on your partner and know how to do it in a good way and learn. And who doesn't like getting massaged? And it's cheap if you and your partner know how to do it, and it just makes sense.
Learn the skills to pleasure each other,
right?
In every way possible.
Yes.
Definitely. And that goes even to the smallest level. Like, I guess it's not even small. Like you climbing up, climbing up the balcony and coming in through the second floor with a little jar of flowers, which is like I'll never forget. You opening the door and scaring the shit out of me and handing me roses, and they were gorgeous and smelled amazing. So something to really appreciate, all the little things. And we've definitely had all kinds of struggles and trials and tribulations, but we're always willing to step back up to the plate. And sometimes one has to pull the other a little bit, like doing some counseling or therapy sessions or whatever, which seemed in the moment like so much struggle, but now looking back, it was a growth process. And going back to the seed analogy, like breaking through the surface, you have to just keep moving through, even if it's rough. If you just keep moving through, eventually you expand.
Right. Yeah.
Loving the seed analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it never ends, and you have to keep doing that work, I think, work maybe is the wrong word, but just keep showing up and growing.
Nurturing.
I think growth is important for both of us. So it's a core thing that we're both really, we feel fulfilled when we feel like we're growing. So we want to take a yoga class or something together, or go to the farmer's market for a date and buy food because we feel like we're contributing to farms, we're buying food that's local and organic, and then we prepare the meal together. So there's like little rituals that are just built into our day-to-day that keep us bonded and connected, and so yeah, we try to be work. Sometimes it's work if I guess there's a conflict or a struggle, but at other times it's really just surrender.
Surrender is huge. Yeah, surrender makes even more sense. It's that there's that balance. There's nurturing and there's surrender and there's trust and just being open and just kind of going with the flow. Yeah. And now we are doing even more incredible, amazing things that are contributing to the conscious piece of our relationship, and that's a lot of work with plants and plant medicine, and that's a whole nother journey that we'll get into at some point, discussion that we'll have, but that's another piece that definitely connects us and helps our relationship stay strong, is being able to see things from a different perspective with the help of plants and medicines.
Right. Yes. So we have done plant medicine together, like ibogaine and ayahuasca, and went down into countries where it's legal to do these things, and did them for personal growth and development, spiritual, psycho-spiritual journeys, but also for our relationship and to heal our relationship, which essentially you're going to heal yourself, and when you heal the bullshit, then the connection between you and others, including your partner, is clean, and when you have that centeredness. And so plant medicine is a big part of, I think, the next evolution, which it still goes back to plants and source food, this source food diet, which is something I guess I can mention is the overall philosophy for the eating and how we look at products that go in and on our body, including mattresses and sheets and clothing and what you wash your clothes with and your dishes and the chemicals in your floor, and even as far to say what's in your paint and off gases from plastics and chemicals, all the way to food. It's a source food diet. It's a source food lifestyle. It's looking at the source and just being reasonable, using common sense and thinking about what these things are and what are the origins of the things that you use on a daily basis. And that, I think, nurtures our relationship in a really healthy way, that we both kind of agree that that's important, and we kind of put that almost before ourselves in a lot of ways. And that's like a really strong common bond, and that includes plant medicine, which is really cool because we started with food. We always had a psychedelic bond from experimentation in our teenage years. We had that common bond when we first met, but now we're working with it in a whole new context, helping people with addiction and therapy with people with traumatic PTSD and different anxiety and depression. So that's a very exciting forefront for another way to really improve your relationship if both people are open to it and called to it. Plant medicine can also be very helpful if you have third-party people to facilitate for you and help you before and after to integrate your experience. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah, we're totally not talking about like just, you know, going outside and dropping some acid and hoping it'll make everything better.
It could, but you might want to work with somebody to increase your chances, because you could also have a challenging experience which could end up being something that you'll have to work on that could be like mitigated by being more conscious and having guides and elders to help you through it, So it's always better to put that conscious approach forward so that you don't harm yourself or other people.
Right. This is the next mountain on our long journey together, and it's really exciting thus far. We'll get into it deeper later. And we'll close this up with a couple things that we've learned through one of the most important pieces, being in the kitchen together. And I think for me, the first and most important thing is building something together. And I did not cook before we were together. Or I didn't cook well. It wasn't... I didn't cook well in the beginning either. I learned that. And I learned it through experimentation, not like picking up a recipe book and doing it. I learned through like really getting into it and experimenting and trying things out and playing and having fun.
Right.
Because nothing's even worth it if you're not having fun and playing. So building something. So how easy is it to just get in the kitchen and cook something together, make a meal, and you've built something and you can enjoy it and savor it and
yeah.
Huge. Can you build something with your partner? What's your kitchen?
What's in your kitchen?
Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate your time. If you're here all the way to the end, that's really beautiful. And
an honor.
Yeah, an honor. It is, really. Thank you so much for listening to us. And send us a message if anything in here is interesting or inspiring, or you potentially are interested in diving deeper in a particular thing that we touched on. Please reach out. We'd love to hear your feedback and your criticism. We're open to all feedback, so send it our way.
And we're always down to get in your kitchen if you'd like us to come in. Welcome in any kitchen. Thank you.